all smiles. And look, we're getting to a place, it's the end of February, and we're about to get into the last month of the first quarter. And I'm excited to share this is actually my first time working and doing one of these sessions in our own office. And very excited to hopefully host all of you guys soon. And we have a couple last little details here, but once it's up, I want to give you guys kind of like a full walkthrough. And once our stage and stuff is built, you'll see a very different setting for our Zoom calls. So the first thing I wanted to do today was, one, really take a moment and just acknowledge all of you, because for the past several months, you guys just have keep showing up, right? Like, you guys have all shown up for yourself. You guys have all been consistent, right? And, they say 90% of doing anything is just showing up. And the other 10% is like how you show up, like what you do in the session, what you guys do after. And what I want to remind you guys all of is, when you think about anything great, it's really built on three principles. It's built on discipline, consistency, and patience. And the third one is patience. I see a lot of you nodding your heads, right? Like, discipline really is the ability just to keep showing up and doing what you promised yourself. Now, the second part of all of this is consistency, doing something regardless of how you feel. And the third part is patience. And when we get into money and everything today, and like really putting all this stuff that we've been working on for the last 6 weeks together, it's the patience parts that's hard, right? Because a lot of us will put money into things and not really give it the time necessary for it to be successful. And so what I want you guys to do is, one, just take a moment back and look at how far you've come, right? And all the work that you guys have done. And so today we're going to talk about implementing the KPIs of money. And there are two parts to this, right? The first part, I'm going to go through a process and kind of like, how do we put all this stuff together? Because look, this is not meant to be another one of these great sessions that's really eye-opening and, yeah, I really need to do this. No, like the magic is actually making it happen, right? Because look, money is not something that you want to leave to chance. So let's see. I just want to share something on my screen. Perfect. So I'm going to go back to a quote that we had. Successful people look for hard. People who settle for mediocrity look for comfort. If you don't want to look at your finances, it is a matter of comfort, right? And the KPIs of money really are an anchor to your financial success. I always share that, I come from an immigrant family, and my dad would always say, when it comes to budgeting and money, you say the word "it's only" to him, his eyes look like they're going to pop out of his head. He kindly reminds me all the time, like, everything you have in your life came from a stationery store, and we sold pens, pencils, and notebooks. We just had really nice ones in the store. And he's like, it's only $15 we could save. It's only $100 we could save, right? And a lot of these "it's onlys" we have are really our comforts and luxuries of life. So like, as we go through this, and write this down, comfort is the enemy of financial success. It's the enemy. And ignorance is bliss is not a financial strategy. It's just not. Right? So when we asked everyone why they didn't want to do this, there was a lot that came out of this of, I just don't want to look, it's uncomfortable, and everything else like that. And so Marcus Lemon from the Prophet, he says, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. It's that simple. It's true, right? And we're never just talking about your business numbers. We want you to have financial freedom, both in your personal and professional life. It's about both. Right. So when we start talking about, why do we need this dashboard? Like, why do I need to do this? Because people are driven more to avoid pain than they are to seek pleasure. It's the number one challenge in coaching. How many coaching programs have people signed up for where they're really excited about something and it doesn't happen? But you sit in a house with a fire, you'll run faster than you've ever ran before in your life. Fear. You ever hear the saying mommy muscles, right? You ever see a mother do something just out of this world, right? Like, It's because when that fear kicks in for their child, that like their body gets into this heightened state of emotion where it can just do stuff. So if you're looking at these numbers every single day and you realize, like, remember when we did the $250,000 annual, it was a year, it came out to around like $4,500 a week. If you look at what you're doing as losing or gaining or having to invest like $4,500 a week in your actions, that's going to freak some of you out to actually do something. It's why accountability shows it works so well, because people show up for other people better than they do themselves. So if you're one of those people, be self-aware and use this to your benefit. We all can use behavioral psychology to our benefit. Here's something I want you guys to write down. When you guys process things in your brain, it's governed by emotion. When you write things down on paper, they're governed by logic. Think about that. So when it comes to all of this stuff and you're thinking about money and it's this conversation in your head, you can be freaked out. You're not going to want to do it. It's just going to say run. Because understanding your finances is actually really the opposite of what you want. Certainty and comfort are your brain's two primary needs, and that's what you're right now. You have certainty and comfort in however it is you run your money. And looking at this and having to make changes is uncertain and uncomfortable, especially if you never thought that way. So like understanding how behavioral psychology works in your benefit is really good. So that's why when you look at these numbers every day, there's a cost and there's a payoff to anything you do. So when people look at this and they're like, well, this is going to take a lot of time. Really? Like, look at where you spend your time. Just go to screen time. It's there. Is the payoff now of not doing something you know you should do really worth the amount of money it's going to cost you? This is literally rewiring your entire psychology in like the most simplest way that's going to have the most benefits. So we broke this down into a profitability roadmap. Part one, time block, right? Now, I know somebody's going to want to kill me by the end of this year and like, oh my God, here it is again. Look, for the last, I would say 15 months, anytime I meet someone that wants to do a strategy day coaching or anything, I go, let me see your schedule. And I could look at their schedule and everything I need to know about their life, their business, it's all there. And I could probably guess their income within 15%. But most people schedule, when we talk about time blocks, it's working towards a specific outcome. We're never going to tell you, hey, just call people for an hour. We're going to say block off an hour and have 5 purposeful conversations with a certain group in your core 4, right? That's like a time block with an outcome. But this, when it comes to money, is actually very different. This time, your commitment is to the time and not the outcome, right? So write this down. Your commitment is to the time and not the outcome. Mastering money is not an overnight process. And money tells stories. Numbers talk to you, and you're not always going to like what you hear in the beginning. So think about this. If you've never done anything related to this, what logical idea is it to war room out a bunch of Post-it notes on your wall and try to do this all at once? It is a terrible idea. Remember how your brain is wired for certainty and comfort? Well, we talk about neuroassociation, the way your brain connects one thing to another. You need, at the end of the hour of doing this, to feel good about it. You need your brain and your psychology around that says, oh, this wasn't so bad. I could do this again. Now, there are a lot of you saying, well, this sounds really great, but this is going to take me a year to do. Great. At least at the end of the year, it's done. And you're learning throughout the process, and you're going into a place that this is actually going to become a habit for you. I believe that every single entrepreneur should spend at least 1 hour a week reviewing their finances. You ever get a credit card bill at the end of the month and you're like, holy shit, like, oh my God, like what? Yeah. Tell people all the time, you should check your credit card statements once a week. Because if you're over budget, or even if you don't have a budget, there's certain numbers you look at and you're like, oh my God. But we live in a world, it's like ping, 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 ping. You don't realize, right? So when you commit to the time and not the outcome, what you're really committing to is your brain creating a positive experience of doing this kind of work. So what you want to really do is take 1 hour a week. That's it to start out with. As you get momentum, you can add more. Does that make sense to everybody? This whole concept of committing to the time versus the outcome. That's it. And whatever you do during that time, you should be happy because it's a sign of progress because you're not doing anything today. That's it. That's committing to time versus the outcome, right? Because when you start doing this and start with your personal finances, remember, your business funds your life. Your life doesn't fund your business, right? So if your business funds your life, the first thing to do is understand your true cost of living. And as you're doing this, you're going to be like, I spend money on what? When you really look at all these expenses, so you could start cutting some of these things. And the goal of this isn't to look at this and never leave your house again, never go out to eat, and all of a sudden you don't enjoy cooking and go buy a bunch of groceries at the store that you're going to throw in the garbage. The first part about this is really awareness. Is my life exactly the way it is today? This is what it costs. And then when you start looking at your business and the costs of your business, and then you look at the third bucket, which is your income, that is going to have a truth of itself. Surplus or deficit? How many months of reserves? Right? These are all things that we can get into once the basics are done. So number two is that when you're doing your time block, right? Like obviously the first part is getting through the dashboard and everything else. We'll go through that in more detail. But then eventually you're going to get to this point of that it's all done and you're going to do the can I, have I, will I, right? Remember that from last week? Was that like, raise your hand if that was a really simple way of thinking of spending and looking at your money, right? Like these decisions need to be able to be distilled down to like 15 minutes or less. And this is where you're going to cut more money than we want. Like my goal in doing this is helping people cut more money out of their budget than they invested in this program. That is my goal. Because there is excess in all of your businesses. Then the second part is give your space enough time and necessary where you don't feel overwhelmed, right? And once you get to a place that you start to feel good about this, then add a second hour in, or maybe do 2 hours. But only do it when you start doing this and you're like excited to do it and that you have momentum. Because once you understand this, you will unlock so much for yourself. How many people in real estate do you think actually understand these numbers? Not so many. Because the challenge is, as entrepreneurs and business owners, we were never even taught to think about this. The same way no one ever told us when we got into real estate, hey, Chirag, you're going to know how to have effective conversations with people. You're just not going to make money. It's a business driven on selling you shiny objects that talk about the next lead. Well, businesses are about profitability and happiness. That's what this is all about. And I'm not trying to be facetious in any way about this, but I really want to get you guys all grounded today on why doing this and a way to make it simple for you. So simple enough, time block an hour a week. If you've done nothing, great. Start printing out your bank statements, personal first, business second, and fill out the KPIs of money dashboard. Second part is in filling out the dashboard. Make sure you do it and don't overthink things. Just stick things into categories. This is not the micro analytical part in filling out the dashboard. The dashboard is to understand a true measure of your expenses. So you can look at your daily, weekly, monthly, and annual costs of living. Remember that cost of wasted time thing based on your screen time, where I wanted you all to like look at how much time you spend on social media and like, is it worth the ROI? Well, if you have not already, I encourage you to watch the movie, The Social Dilemma. And I saw it the first time, maybe like a year and a half ago, and I watched it again this weekend. And let me tell you the most eye-opening thing in there. So one, all these people are like the people that literally built these platforms and these tech giants. They all worked with lawyers and they're all nervous talking about it. One of the things they started saying was like, they thought they're building all this good in the world, but nothing they did, they never thought about the adverse effects. So one of the guys goes, look, if we all get the platforms for free, right? Like they don't charge us to be on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is. Who's actually the customer of theirs? The advertiser. And what does the advertiser want? They want people on these platforms as long as humanly possible. So these people have used the dopamine in your brain, behavioral psychology, and all of these different things to keep you hooked on these things. Even the guy who designed the Gmail inbox, and it talks about how they change certain colors and patterns to make it addictive to people want to go back and go back and go back. Who here has ever gone back and checked their email like ding, ding, ding? Like that's what happens. So putting the cost of wasted time in your dashboard is essential because it's going to help you realize like, wait a second, why am I spending all this time here? Right? Because if you took some time from there and you practice how to have effective conversations, like over the course of time, the value of that would significantly trump anything else. Now, the third part, printing out the KPIs and money dashboard. Now, there's steps to go ahead and do this through the actual spreadsheet. And then by the end of the day, for the people that like to print paper out and just put like a good old fashioned handwritten document together, we have that too. Both will be available to you.
Can you guys still hear me? Somebody give me a thumbs up. All right, good. My AirPods just died. The reason you need to print this out is I need you guys to embed this into your brain. Like this needs to be something you look at every single day, because when that time block happens, and whether it's organizing your CRM, reaching out to people in your core 4, whatever it is, and that phone rings for an unplanned distraction, that sheet is what's going to help you stay on track. And the question becomes this: is breaking the promise you made to yourself during a time block really worth answering that call, email, text message? Start to program your brain differently. So as you can see, like in doing this, our goal over the first quarter was really to help you establish a fundamental basis to your business. Now look at this. At the end of the quarter, what is this all going to look like? Do we talk about how to source all your business? Absolutely. Do we talk about understanding where your GCI comes from? Absolutely. Will you have an entire financial dashboard? Yes. Will you have cut your budget? Yes. Will you have gone through all your expenses and understand what to get rid of, how to get rid of it, why to get rid of it, and how to get the most out of your investments and how to make new decisions? Yes. You have an entire roadmap now on a foundation, right? And as we round up the first quarter, things that we're going to get into are like how to have effective conversations with people. No one talks about sales. It's pretty crazy. And it's not really sales. It's like meeting people where they are, asking great questions, and having effective conversations. It's actually a skill. We're going to get into now tying in your core 4, your KPIs of money, right? And when you're going through your budget, and the last part is going through the can I, have I, will I. It's understanding when you're looking at this money, how much of this money you're spending into your business. It's either categorizing it in marketing, branding, lead gen, coaching, or support, right? Like those are all the things that people pay for. How many of the things you're spending money on align with actually where you're getting your business? It's the most eye-opening thing in the world. And the other thing is, when it comes to cutting things, do not put good money behind bad decisions. If you're never going to role play, track your numbers, and do all these things like the examples that we had in the Kate session from last week, just don't do it. Move on. This, like literally, I'll paint this visual for you. You ever see somebody at a slot machine that just keeps putting money in? And it's like, okay, fine. Like if I keep going, I'm eventually going to win. That's agents in lead generation and marketing. If I get one deal, it's going to pay the whole thing off. That's not a good business model. And this is where you just simply cut money, right? So when you start understanding how these things are all put together, then something really unique can happen for you, because it's called a scalable foundation, right? Once we have a scalable foundation, you can build anything on it. So raise your hand if you feel good now about time blocking and prioritizing tasks. Good. How many of you feel good about understanding where your business comes from down to what parts make up the most GCI? How many of us out now know where to focus our time and who to call? Right now, another thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that thing that we talk about in all the checklists. Next week, we're going to walk through that and really putting all this together in a different way. Now, the next part about this is going through and actually cutting your budget. So tomorrow in the sessions, I will have an agent on with me, and we'll go through an example of like thinking through the, have I, can I, will I for an existing budget. And then we'll also go through how to make a decision for a new budget item. And so at the end of it, you guys will know how to do all this stuff. And to say that I could not be more proud of all of you is like really an understatement. Because you guys have come into this already successful with such a willingness to learn. There's 250 people on this call on a Monday afternoon. And this 250 to 300 numbers remain very consistent, which shows that all of you are committed, right? So this is this time in your life that you say enough is freaking enough, and I'm going to own money, and I'm not going to work for money. Money's going to work for me. Because if you don't understand your finances, you work for the money. As soon as you understand the money can then work for you. Because you're not going to have to even make as many investments if you invest in the right things, because the ROI is greater. You're going to have more free time because you could be dialed in a specific lane with what you want to do. Now, look, it's infinitely easier to make decisions when you willingly say no than when things are just taken away from you. Another thing my dad always told me, he goes, that plastic rectangle in your pocket that you swipe for points is the bane of everyone's existence. Think about, but why are you using a credit card? I want the points, right? But then all of a sudden you get stuck with this bill that you might not account for. So couple action items I want you guys to do. Number one, obviously here are the steps. In your time block, like if you're a credit card spender, you don't have to self-identify yourself. And you've ever had one bad experience with the bill, please check your bill at every month. And please try not to swipe something that you don't have the money in your bank account to pay for. Because that's like, if you think about it, there's certain things you can't solve for. Remember when all the interest rates went up and all these buyers around the country literally started canceling their contracts and walking away from their down payments? I had some clients that had more than $500,000 in canceled contracts. Could you imagine if you spent against that money, what would happen right now? So start thinking about this stuff. I want people to be happy. Like that's it. And happiness comes from having a great business and a great life. And it's something I'll keep saying over and over again to you guys. It's like I really want you guys to feel that this is all possible, that it all can happen, and it will happen. Right? So as long as we can get out of our heads and into logic and take simple actions, that's all you need to do, right? So number one, make sure you time block the time. Like make sure you do that. Number two, if you have not got started, just start pulling your expenses an hour at a time and fill out the dashboard. When you're done with the dashboard, make sure you fill out the worksheet and you look at it every day. And then when you start to look at it every day and you're going back to the time block, I want you to go through every expense once you've categorized it and go through the have I, can I, will I exercise, and align it with your core 4 so you know what to cut and what to keep. All right, so undo the chat right now. Can we open up the chat for a second? All right, chat's open. So here's my question. How many of you now feel good about actually going and doing this, right? Versus if you feel bad, not like I feel bad, I'm uncomfortable, right? Like you feel bad, like you don't know what you're doing. So write the word good in here if you feel good about it. Trace bien, I like that. All right, we're getting to that half place, almost half. And by the way, again, I will encourage all of you, Do this with your spouse if you have a spouse. Please don't do this on your own. If you have a spouse, a partner, anyone that's involved in financial decisions with you, this is a collaborative exercise that will bring someone closer to you. Do not do this and ram this down someone else's throat unless like you are the person that does all the money where your partner doesn't really care as long as you do it. Because there are a lot of those relationships out there as well. All right, good. Most of you feel good, which honestly, like selfishly, this made my entire day today. The fact that like over 100 of you feel really good about this and are inspired and are positive to do it. Listen, overcoming like your association with money is one of the biggest challenges people have in their life. Money is your friend if you treat it like your friend. And if you look at money as your friend, would you care for it? Would you spend time with it? Would you get to know it better? Would you listen to it? Of course you would. If it's someone you didn't like, you neglect it, you use it when you want, and you get rid of it when you don't want. Just think about money as your friend and the entire relationship will change. Do the same things with your friend. Do the same things with money and approach it with the same love and care as you would your children. Right? Like that's a crazy statement to say, but if you love your money the way you love the things you love most in your life, you'll just give it attention, right? Kids spell love with attention. Well, so does money, because if you give it attention, you start thinking about it and spending time on it and putting all this stuff together. This, I promise you, there's momentum and multipliers. You guys are all building momentum. Understanding this is a multiplier, right? And when we start getting into how to have effective conversations, pre-qualifying, sharing your value propositions, we have a full-blown plan to share all the essential skills that will win all the business you humanly want. Then we can talk about how to service the business in a way that's like really scalable and more like a Four Seasons hotel. And when you start doing this and you start practicing, I promise you, when you keep doing this, you'll beat every agent in your market because no one's thinking about it this way. And I'll leave you guys with this thought. If you look at something like Compass, which we all are inspired by, do you think logically speaking that you'd get into competing with someone that had 90 years of experience in something when you had 0? 10 years ago, that's what Compass was. But see, what I learned from Robert is if you have an infinite game vision versus a finite player where the game begins and ends, in the end, you always win. So this is an infinite game, and your competitors are playing a finite game. They're living on P&Ls and week by week and everything else. It doesn't work that way. So when you guys build the foundation, trust the process, follow the system, have discipline, consistency, and know the patience that as long as you stick with us and do the work, it's all going to work out. I promise you magic will happen. And the last part I'll share with you is we're literally working on building out an agent calendar to round out the first quarter that maps in all the things we want you to do. It'll have all the action steps in it. And for the first person that tells me, well, I don't have time to do all this, go look at your screen time on your phone. Yes, you do. Your work expands and contracts to the time that's allotted. You give 3 weeks to a project, it'll take 3 weeks. If you give it a week, it'll get done in a week. Right? So this is something for the end of March. Question, doing this with your spouse. When you enter your earnings, it is based on a commission. How do you enter your spouse? Doesn't mean they have a set salary, so that doesn't take a percentage of their income. Well, then if your percentage is 30%, add 130%. Add whatever your percentage is onto their income, so it nets out to the same thing. So that's a simple answer. All right, everybody, listen, with love in my heart, I love you all. Thank you so much for just being open and sharing your inspiration today. And please, if you have wins, share them with us. We love getting these emails. Our team is always happy to answer questions like Arana, I want to pronounce the name. Arana, I hope I'm pronouncing that, sent us the most beautiful email that was circulated that I shared with our entire team, right? Like, our team is inspired by what you guys do and the wins that you have. So share it with them. They all work really hard, and that's the best part for them. So I hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for some live examples of this. Bye, everybody.